Hi, my name is Dr. Sonia Bruton, and I'm the CEO of CCI Health and Wellness Services. Thank you so much for your support of the arts and for CCI. Our goal is to be a community resource that provides medical services to anyone who needs them, and your help today makes that possible. Thanks again.
Take these arms that I may fly up to God's own kingdom way up high, and take these eyes that I may see. Oh, my sweet Lord Jesus, come to me. Jesus, take my heart that beats for thee. Jesus, take my hand and set me free.
Mama used to say that song come to her way up on the top of Scraggy Mountain. She loved a certain rocky peak up there. It was called Delilah's Wart, because it was shaped like Delilah's wart, I guess. Don't ask me who Delilah was. Anyhow, she climbed up there every chance she got, starting when she was, I believe, 8 or 9. She wrote that song up there on the wart. Mama did. Rightly knew Daddy had no use for religion. Oh, he sure did love all them songs with religion in them. Oh, and his wife. Mama was a good one.
When Daddy courted Mama, they would hike up to Delilah's wart and picnic on the rock, right there on the very most edge of the cliff. They both agreed it was sure enough a jumping off place. Daddy said it'd be like soaring like an eagle to jump off that rock. Mama thought that was romantic. They never jumped, of course. They just sat on that rock and courted. They was barely 16 when Daddy asked for Mama's hand. She said yes.
16 years. 10 children later. Well, she was dying. And she whispered to Daddy, she said, "Husband, I want to go to Delilah's wart just one more time." Now you have to know, there's no way to get up them cliffs but to scramble. I mean, you had to grab onto tree branches and jump across them crevasses. Not even our mule would go up there.
Daddy, he done strapped Mama to this chair. I tucked a quilt around her and put the guitar in her arms. Then Daddy, he done tied himself right to the back of that chair. Well, that's right, tied himself and carried Mama. Yes. All the way up to Delilah's wart. So's our Mama, his wife, could see out for 100 miles over them mountains, over coal country, over Bowcatcher Holler. The place been her home for 32 years on this God's earth.
Daddy never did like children.
Now that's a God's truth.
Never liked them one bit.
No, sir.
Not a lick.
Well, he did throw a baseball to me once,
Once.
I reckon.
He done pushed me on the swang over there on that hickory. Well, one used to be there.
Once to twice.
Well,
It's true. Daddy never liked children, not one iota. He said the squealing of children just about made him want to skin himself.
But he was right partial to her.
Daddy sure did like her reading to him.
Special time together. That please some, try all. Both joy and terror, of good and bad that make and unfold error. Now take upon me, in the name of time, to use my wings.
Always chasing us off the porch so they could visit.
Without us.
Oh, now, boys. Jinxie was the only one of us who knew how to read. Nah, I suppose you're right. She was the only one of us that Daddy liked.
Well, I guess he must have liked us a tiny bit. Hell, the old man, he had 10 of us.
Oh, you mean Mama? Mama had 10 of us. He just, how do you say it?
Procreated.
Procreated. Daddy, he done procreated us. Yes, indeed, that's what he done.
Well, he couldn't procreate, no sense of humor.
None at all.
How can you say that? He named each one of us. Named you.
Had to honor our estimable last name.
Jackson.
Jackson. Named you Jelly.
For Geraldine.
Daddy.
Because you was fat and jiggly. Named you Jake. What kind of name is that? Sure enough, ain't in the Bible that I recollect.
JP, James Parsifal.
Who was that now, anyhow?
How can you say that? James Parsifal, friend of Daddy's, got lost down in the hole.
Don't you pay him no never mind. That was a mighty long time ago.
I am James Parsifal's keepsake, for crying out loud.
Don't matter no how. No more. All of them long gone.
The noise. Yes, Daddy said he'd sooner skin himself.
You outdone yourself, darling. That peach pie was a peach.
Oh, I always knowed when it was Mama's birthday season. It's when them peaches get ripe.
When you got peaches, you's rich.
You got that right, all right.
You know, people with money today, well, you don't got no idea about what real life is like up here in these mountains.
Well, these parts done growed up for sure.
Grew up. These parts done grew up.
You're Jinx now all of a sudden.
Bo Catcher Holler had one telephone for the whole town. And down at Miller's store, 100 people used to stand in line for that damn phone. After Daddy disappeared, I'd go down to Miller's every day after high school. See if he left me a message. Never did. Mr. Miller would have on that sad, sweet look, and I'd know. Then community college, got my diploma in English, scurried on down to Miller's. There's so much I wanted to tell Daddy. I'm going to teach children Yeats and Tennyson and Winter's Tale, all your favorites. Here's that sad, sweet face of Mr. Miller.
Bo Catcher Holler. Oh, ain't no better place like it. Now, boys, some things never change. Think about how we still got each other.
You're right about that, Don. Sure enough.
We had nothing. When I was a little girl, 12 people lived up in that shack. 12 people hanging on the side of old Scraggy. Good God. We were so damn poor when that Great Depression came around, we didn't even notice.
Daddy kept on procreating, and Mama, she just kept on having them babies.
And Daddy, well, he kept having them heebie-jeebies.
Spells.
Phobias.
No, they call them things phobias.
Up until he finally left us for good, Daddy disappeared all the time. But he always came back to May. Well, us, I suppose. Daddy!
Well, hey there, darling. Heard you been down to the big city. Did you have yourself some fun to Charleston?
Oh, Daddy, so many fancy buildings. Reverend May brought us to this beautiful restaurant with big windows and these things they call booths. And Daddy, they had these men dressed so nice. I mean, nicely. Reverend May is helping me with my grammar. Anyway, these men, they looked so nicely. They called them waiters. And Daddy, they brought our food right to our booth. I nearly fainted. And the food, they had something called shrimp cocktail. Oh, heavenly.
Sounds like y'all had yourself a nice time. Nicely time. No, nice time. Nicely time.
Daddy, that's silly. But the best part, well, the two bestest parts anyhow, lovely part was the library. It's what you call in the Rococo style. Don't ask me what Rococo means. Well, I think it probably means lovely. Anyhow, Reverend May introduced all us kids to this woman. She was the librarian. And first off, Daddy, she was wearing the most beautiful dress I have ever seen in my whole entire life. They don't have dresses like that down in Bowcatcher Holler or up here in Old Scraggy. One day I'm going to buy a dress just like it.
Sugar, did they have any of them books in that there library?
Of course they had books in the library, you silly. So many books. We all ordered our library cards. Reverend May says he'll take us there every month. Isn't that just so
Nice.
Daddy could have been a writer, but he couldn't even write his name. In his family, schooling was a frivolous notion. Guess that's why you liked me reading to you. Talking about other places, other times, other people. You used to tell me about your life as a little boy. Made me think of poor Oliver Twist. Daddy?
I was always most afeard of the dark. Nighttime come around and I commenced to praying. Dear Lord, please don't forget to make the sun come up. And I'd squeeze my eyes so hard I could see little dancing lights inside my eyeballs. Up till then, God liked to always seen to it the sun would sure enough peep over old Scraggy. But I think I was about 5 or 6. My pa, your grandpa, he tore into my room.
Boy, you're going to go to work with me today. See what real men do for a living.
Yeah, first off, Jinxie, the sun ain't come up and ain't gonna come up for another 3 hours. On top of that, my teeth was clattering from the cold.
Why you got your eyes all squinty like? Get your boots on, boy. You got half a second to get out there on that porch.
I can't find my other boot. Where's my boot?
They dragged you, all of 6 years old, 2 miles down the mountain, so you could see how the men of Bowcatcher Holler made their living? A 6-year-old scared of the nighttime boy, deathly afraid of the dark, to a place where even experienced miners said they could only take the dark for 5 or 10 seconds before they went stark raving. Take a 6-year-old scared of the nighttime boy down there in the hole. What kind of people?
Let's face it, Daddy was a little off somehow.
That time old man Putnam tried to drag Daddy out of the house for his shift.
Same day Jinxie was born. Oh, who can ever forget that day?
No, sir. I ain't never going back in that mine. I'm right certain on that, Mr. Putnam. Never again.
Right there on the porch, panting like a dog.
Mama gonna be all right?
And labor pains is pretty bad.
You can just go to hell, because I ain't going down in that hole. ever again. I'm sorry, darling, but I can't. I just can't.
I never heard such an awful noise as Daddy screaming on this very porch that day. Oh, it like to scared me half to death.
Old man Putnam said, I can't lie to the boss no more. Jackson, you don't show, that's it. You're fired.
Oh, Mama looked right close into Daddy's face. Husband, please, please, please go with Mr. Putnam.
I just couldn't tell if Mama was in pain from the birthing or Daddy losing his job.
So sorry.
Well, sir, and that old man Putnam, he just stumped right off to the mine.
Mama had Jenks right then and there.
You done, Jackson. Fired.
Jenks.
Mechanic job came up.
Yeah, but Daddy was just too afeard of the smell of gasoline.
Oh, and then the WPA started stringing up all them electric lights.
Ain't no way I'm going to electrocute myself.
I don't know. Hell, even the idea of sweeping was just too dangerous for Daddy.
The dust.
Oh, come on now. Let's face it. Our father got the heebie-jeebies, had anything to do with work.
You got that right, all right.
Say, Geraldine, I'm still tasting that peach pie. Almost as good as them pies down to the Scraggy Diner.
Yep, shame they tore that place down for the tunnel. We used to beg for our supper there.
Did not beg.
Oh, no. We just stood out behind the garbage cans waiting for Miss May to kick that screen door open, see if we could get some of them leftovers she was about to feed to the dogs. 5 points for a steak bone.
Yeah, we weren't begging.
Miss May. Lands. She always had that. I never smelled nothing. Smells as bad as you kids. Look on her face.
I guess they weren't the homeliest thing ever lived.
Oh, downright ugly as a sow belly.
Miss May. And to think that pinched up mean old thing was the Reverend's wife.
Well, seems to me you was sweet on her boy.
Mm-hmm. Right sweet.
Oh, Bobby May was an awful nice fella.
Like his old man. To this day, I can see him dragging that sack of clothes up the holler around about Christmas time, clothes for the poor folk.
Oh, I just loved that coat with the rabbit collar on it. Oh,
Hell, you wore that thing in summer.
That dang thing wore down about the size of a hanky.
oh, all the same. I just love that coat. Oh, Bobby May liked to say he shot the rabbit was around my neck. Miss May got wind of us. Then before I could sneeze, Bobby was in the army. Sometimes I think his mama was happy he got himself killed in Korea instead of marrying me. Oh. Now Bobby's father, Reverend May, he just kept on bringing clothes and food up to us every year.
Taking Jenks to the library down to Charleston.
Every month.
Hardly we got anything from the church, considering Daddy was downright ugly to them people.
Daddy was a believing man, just had no use for religion.
Jinxie, you and me know Jesus got better things to do than listen to them people praying and jumping around, acting a fool.
Mama could have sure used Jesus after the 4 babies passed.
We came through the holler that year. Seems no family was spared.
Losing them babies, that just killed Mama. It just killed her. Husband, I want to go up to Delilah's wart one more time.
long-suffering woman, Mama was.
Yes, she was, and a good one. Daddy just had no use for the mines, I guess.
He'd done it for 10 years. That's more than most.
Huh? Started working down there on his 12th birthday. Exactly on his 12th birthday.
My mama packed me a piece of birthday cake in my lunch pail.
And a little smiling totem pole
For good luck.
Oh, Lordy. Oh, them totem poles. Grammy fancied herself an Indian. I was stole away in the night by a tribe, lifted right out of my basket by a Cherokee squaw. Of course, I had to learn all the Indian ways.
And my family stole me back.
Married me off to the meanest man alive.
That part was true. Our grandfather was a wretched man. Well, the Indian part, it did make for a good story. And Daddy loved telling it over and over. My daddy worked the mines from the time he was 12 years old up until he was 22. Up until that day when it happened.
I remember them dogs. Usually they would bark and carry on as we left the house and run down the trail with us. Then they'd hightail it back to the porch because your grandma, she put scraps out for them. But Jinxie, that day was altogether different. Them hounds wouldn't come with us. Come on, Frisky, hey, Pumpkin. They just hung back all whimpery like. Didn't want to go with us. Well, I figured because it was pouring down rain. Only thing good about it was the lightning. In a flash, I could see the whole mountain. And we slopped our way down to the quarry. And there was old man Putnam standing right next to the portal.
Jackson, you got roof duty today. You're a steel driving man.
I hated him for that. Meant I had to drag that sledgehammer in the tunnel with me. Well, I guess somebody got to do it. The lead man had the lantern. 1 mile down, I remember thinking, well, there seems to be a whole lot more loose rock than usual. The low places have water. And every once in a while, I'd squeeze my eyes to get more light. Jinxie, don't let nobody tell you otherwise. It's blacker and cold down there. Had to laugh at myself. This scrawny guy was supposed to bolt the ceiling, keep from falling in on us. Another mile down or so, I smelled something that ain't right. We was walking along the tracks, listening to the coal carriers being pulled up. Tickety, 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 tickety. 4 men were in front of me. Tickety, 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 tickety. That smell don't seem right at all. And then James Parsifal, big man, he turned and yelled, "Gas!" Well, Jinxie, next thing I know, I think it's thunder and lightning down in that hole, because that place lit up like Kingdom Come. A boom! Fireball. And this hot wind comes barreling at us like Dick the Devil. The man in front of me went down, and James, he grabbed a hold of my collar, started running, dragging me behind him. And he yelled to me, "Drop the goddamn sledgehammer and run, you bastard!" I done heard men screaming from all over. Honey, you ain't never felt nothing like rock shot ripping into your skin. The second explosion hit, and James, he got covered in gravel and blood, but he kept on running, dragging me with him. I just felt like my feet weren't hardly touching nothing, just flying through that tunnel so fast. And then smoke come up all around us, everywhere around us, over us, inside of us. He's going to drown in smoke. And I hear one of them, air shaft. James and the other men start nailing canvas to the walls, and we found us some good air in there. Built us a smoke barrier. We waited. This is it. I'm gonna die in the deepest, darkest dark there ever was.
My poor daddy. He was down there for 2 days before the rescuers got to him. James Parsifal was lying on top of Daddy, dead. They say it was JP's big body against Daddy's scrawny chest that saved him. Kept him from breathing too deeply, from sucking up too much carbon monoxide. That was the day when you got your phobias. Daddy never could work in the mines after that. Never could work again, period. Doing anything. He could have been a writer. But he couldn't even write his name.
That dang company. How many years ain't you work down the hole for them?
Oh yeah, 41. I could have put it more if it wasn't for this blasted condition.
You right there, boy.
Lance, you got to stop that. Let me get you a drink, water.
I just gotta get my wind.
I said to go get him if he's any worse.
Hold on there, brother. Oh, no need to stir up a Kansas tornado. I'm fine.
Of course you're fine. Must have just swallowed up a skeeter is all. Oh, them skaters been just awful this year. I can't remember when they've been this bad.
12 years old he was when Daddy started working the mines. That's about how old I was when I won the state spelling bee. That's when I knew I wanted to be a writer. Just like you could be. We had ourselves a plan. Talked about it all the time. We were going to pick up and take off to someplace grand. Well, to some wonderful New York City or Chicago to be writers. I figured I could help Daddy write down all those thoughts that were fixing to bust out of his head. I'd be his writing partner. We'd be published by Scribner, travel the world.
I don't know. It seems crazy anybody want to live somewhere outside of Bowcatcher Holler.
Away from this here porch.
That was something. How Daddy'd be snoring on the porch. Then Jinxie'd come bounding up that hill and run straight to her chair.
Quick as wink. Well, Daddy wake up and he'd be chasing us off the porch with one of them damn totem poles.
Oh, Lordy. Oh, them totem poles.
We skedaddle like chickens about to be rung.
Oh, just stop it. Oh, stop it. How's the world gone crazy?
Oh, your Daddy was citing that them Shakespearean mumbo jumbo.
Oh, mumbo jumbo.
To be or not to be.
What? That's what I want to know.
Bzz. To be a bee or not to be a bee. My country 'tis a thee.
Hey, that's a poem.
Bzz. Oh, stop it. I think I peed. Oh, you boys, You ready for some iced tea? I got a batch brewing.
Yeah, don't put yourself out now, Geraldine.
Oh, tain't no bother at all. James Parsifal.
I was right proud of Daddy and me reciting Mr. William Shakespeare. Daddy was sharp. I would read him the lines and he would remember them. Sometimes we made that whole porch our stage, the old globe of Scraggy Mountain. With all those people gone, that rickety house was darn right roomy. When I'd be at school, Daddy mostly laid out on the porch. Didn't you? Singing and whittling. In our corner. That's where we would read and talk and, well, paint totem poles. Talk about New York City. Jape and Jax worked the mines all day, and Jelly, she played mama to both of them. They were grown men, and she still called them the boys.
I tell you about them fishing poles I found down to the pond. You know, the ones you and I used to fish with. Oh, it's been a long time, brother. Let's see you and I go down there and try and catch us a few.
Why? I never go down there no more. Can't do it. Still.
Of course, brother. Well, let me try and shoot something. Fish ain't biting good anyhow.
My father loved the poem Rondelay. Chloe found Amyntas lying, all in tears upon the plain, sighing to himself and crying, wretched I do love in vain. Kiss me, dear, before my dying. Kiss me once and ease my pain.
One of them clear days down to pond. Done caught myself a couple of big catfish. I was about to take myself a nap when I saw it. Saw that beautiful bird sitting on the water, other side of the pond. I watched it for the longest time. Never seen no bird with colors like that. I lay down on the bank and snoozed for a while. When I woke up, I seen it floated clear over to my side of the pond.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, brother.
But it weren't no bird. It was her dress. Grabbed me a stick to fish it out with.
Oh, now you don't have to remember that sad day no more.
I got closer. I tried to tell myself I was seeing things. That can't be. Floating in that pond, face down. But it was. It was.
Every day after school, I'd rush home straight away with a new book from the library. Daddy, look, I found it. That book of poems by John Dryden.
Jax, if I tell you something, oh, you can't breathe not a word of this to Jelly. It would upset her no end. You remember that box of Jinxes? Well, brother, I found it. It was stashed away in the woodshed. Oh, about 10 years back.
10 years? What? What do you mean?
Yes, sir. And brother, there was money in it. Cash money, lots and lots of cash money.
Money?
Well, Jinx never told us about no money. She just stashed it away.
That don't make no sense.
Well, I figured to basically hang on to it in case any one of us fell on hard times.
Hey, something else. What else? What else was in that box, Jape?
Well, letter. Darn if I could read it.
Well, there's lots of folks in town might could read it for us.
Jax. I burned it. I burned that letter.
Oh, why in the hell you go and do a thing like that?
Iced tea. Made it some nice little cucumber sandwiches too. Oh, is there anything better than iced tea on a day like this? Reminds me of when we used to have those picnics down to the pond, all 12 of us. We'd make them cucumber sandwiches, Mama Jenks and me. And then you boys would carry them babies in the same baskets, got them sandwiches in it. Oh, them babies look awful cute with them sandwiches tucked all around them. Oh, we said everything's so nice. Up on that hill, remember that hill? You boys chasing after frogs, chasing us girls with them frogs. Oh, those damn frogs getting loose. Mama and Daddy singing to each other. Jinx up in her tree with a book. Long about dark, we'd all drag ourselves over home. Daddy be carrying half of us like a pack mule, just singing the whole way back. Oh, man. Ain't these cucumbers nice? Oh, I just love cukes. Say now, boys, how about we go down there this afternoon? To the pond. Oh, it's been so long.
Oh, that sounds lovely, darling, but I think I'm catching cold.
That's all right. I can tell it's going to be another fine day tomorrow. Like Mom and Daddy used to tell us, you ain't got today. There's a fine chance of tomorrow.
Daddy, you'd never believe what I just found. Macbeth. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Daddy? Oh, come on now. Where are you? He gone. Vanished. Just like that. And for good this time. Left me to fend for myself in this godforsaken place. With a bunch of uneducated, ignorant.
On me. How many years since Daddy been gone?
Oh, gotta be at least 40.
Oh, at least.
Daddy, bless his heart. Him and them phobias. Do you think he was crazy? Oh, he must have been, to just up and take off without so much as a toodaloo.
Well, now, I
He
mean,
must have had himself a good reason.
I like to cried every time I saw Jinx sitting in her chair, kind of hunched over and reading to Daddy's chair. I mean, like he was sitting there. You know, this morning I was thinking about that box, one that showed up for Jinx. Remember that box? She didn't open it for the longest time. And then she finally did. That girl just about bit my head right off when I asked her what was in it.
43rd Street. New York.
She wouldn't let me come near her. Just held on to that box for dear life. Oh, that poor thing. I think she got the phobias too. Well, just like Daddy. They say it's genetical.
January 26th, 1947. My dearest Jinxie. Can it be so many years have passed? It was high time I wrote you a letter to explain myself. I have to believe you will understand. I'm regretful that I never said goodbye or told you where I was. It seems something took a hold of me all those years back and said, get away from the dark. So I took the chance. And I went north.
It's most peculiar. I've been working on these tall skyscrapers hanging in the air, looking out over Manhattan. The Hudson River is a sight to behold. When I'm up there, I'm back on the ridge, staring down into the holler, so high up in the air, it's full of light. You know how much I love the light, Jinxie. New York City is a most wondrous place. They got a giant library. You would love it so. One day come here and see for yourself. You could spend a lifetime surrounded by these beautiful books. Every chance I get, I come here to read. Oh, you'd be so proud of me, darling. My friends at the boarding house have been teaching me. Got my favorite corner. Bring my paper and pen so I can practice my handwriting too. As you can see, it's coming along nicely. I want to tell you how grateful I am to you for looking after the others. You're the only one I could trust to do that. Thank you, Jinxie. I owe you that much. And there is something else.
Not sure how many more days I have left in me. That damn coal dust followed me here. But it makes me happy to know that soon it will be like jumping off Delilah's wart. I do have a final confession to make. It was wrong of me to favor you over your brothers and sisters. I was fond of you all in the same way. Would you tell them for me? Give them the enclosed.
Perhaps it'll help make up for those lost years when I wasn't good for much. The dress is for you, from Macy's. What a magical store. Sort of like Miller's, but bigger. Every time I walk past those tall, grand windows, I think of you. Your mom always said there was something special about our Jinxie. She was right. You gave me Prospero and King Arthur and Oliver Twist. Forever. Your daddy.
Hey, Jelly, honey, there's something we got to tell
She
you.
did not have to go and do what she'd done. Now, did she? Was life all that bad for Jinx Jackson? Had her highfalutin teacher's license, a good job, Daddy always doting on her. I think there was something in that box made her do it. And we'll never know. We'll just never
Now,
know.
darling, it's okay now. You just sit yourself down right here.
Some
Here.
people just get too sad for the world.
Jinxie? You mean to tell me that none of the rest of us ever felt sad? How about me? No, Jelly Jackson don't have no time to be sad. She got to take care of everybody. But who's going to take care of me when everybody's gone?
Geraldine.
Well, answer me that.
You're getting yourself up.
It don't make no sense at all.
No, it don't, darling. No, it don't.
Chloe, laughing at his crying, told him that he'd loved in vain, but repenting and complying. When he'd kissed, she'd kissed again. Kissed him up before his dying. Kissed him up and eased his pain.
Well, Lance, I don't know what come over me. Can I get you boys something else? No. Must be the trees turning. Always makes me feel a little, I don't know, like there's change or something in the air. Don't believe I ever knowed. You can see Delilah's ward from up here.
Oh, there she is. Look at sun shining on her.
Daddy always said this was a sure enough jumping off point.
Mama thought that was romantic.
Mama was a good one.
I reckon Daddy was a good one too.
Why ain't we been lucky? The three of us together all these years.
Got each other.
Got the porch.
Ugh, I just love this porch.
Mama had Jinxie on this porch, this very porch.
I was so scared.
Oh, Lordy, what a mess.
Mama hollering. Oh, them labor pains was pretty bad.
Kids yelping and crying right along with her. Them dogs howling.
And Daddy.
Oh, he weren't no help at all.
They were running around in circles.
Oh, and Daddy yelling, oh, the baby's birthing. Oh, damn it, man. Go get him up.
Jinxie popped right out.
Right then and there.
Oh, Nay. We was all so happy then.
Good evening. I am Jose Luis Diaz, and welcome to the post-show discussion of Holler. Please use your comment button to submit your questions and comments so we can answer them live. We have a beautiful panel that will get to the answers as soon as we get them on the screen. And so please let me introduce our panel. Dr. Sonia Bruton, she is the CEO and President of CCI Health and Wellness Services. She has been a thought leader in community health centers at a national, state, and local level since 1999. She's also a clinical psychologist, so I'm sure she's going to be able to bring a lot of light to a lot of the questions that are going to come in about this interesting family. Thank you, Dr. Bruton, for being here tonight. We also have Evan Casey. He is the art director and cast member as well. He has been a director, actor, and teacher in DC for the last 20 years, and we have seen him in every stage throughout the DMV area. He has garnered many nominations for the Helen Hayes, and we are so thrilled to have you here tonight, Evan. Thank you so much for being here. And last and but not least, Dr. George Purefoy Tilson, the playwright. He has been writing musicals and plays for many, many years, and we are thrilled that you can be here and answer some questions that people have. And so please use the comment button in your whatever platform you're using to watch the show and send your questions in. And one of the first questions that we have is for George. What was the impetus for this play? In this story in particular?
That's a great question. The initial idea came to me from a writing exercise. I was part of a marvelous group called Playwrights Gymnasium, and I remember one day D.W. Gregory, who's a great playwright, had facilitated an activity where she had us pull from a pile of vintage photographs, and I happened to pull one at random, and it was this iconic photo of a guy hanging on a crane over Manhattan, one of those 1930 era photos. And the first idea I had was a comedy. I actually thought, well, maybe it's a Park Avenue tycoon from a wealthy family, and he just really wants to be a working man. So by day, he goes and kind of a la reverse Superman. He changes into his construction outfit and goes sailing up on the crane. Well, that lasted for a little bit. All I could get out of it was maybe a skit. So I dropped the idea. But one day I happened to be reading an account of a terrible mining disaster that had happened, and all of a sudden I just had this thought, well, maybe that's the guy on the crane, maybe that's Daddy. So and I also realized that it lent itself to being a story about a large family of storytellers. So I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to work with three great casts over a period of time and do different revisions based on their ideas and input. And then last summer, we were slated to participate in the Rave Festival in New York and get a chance to see it on its feet in front of an audience. And of course, we know everything came to a screeching halt. And I happened to be talking to Larry Levinson and then thereafter Evan, and we thought, well, maybe the play would lend itself to this kind of a format where actors could be doing it remotely. And it was really wonderful because those actors really put me through my paces as a writer. They'd ask those great questions that are really hard for writers to contend with. And then the other thing that kind of added to it was bringing in James Gardner, because he had a vision for how we could take the play, which was originally set to have 12 chairs in it, take it to this format. So anyway, long story short, that's kind of how the idea came about.
As it turns out, having spent 16 months doing Zoom, we are still unable to hit the unmute button. So, I very eloquently said
It
I
looked
was
great.
passing the ball to Dr. Bruton so she can
You
tell
looked
us a
good.
little bit about the creation of community health centers as a way to answer the need for unserved populations in very rural areas.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for making CCI Health and Wellness the beneficiary of this wonderful premiere. The Community Health Center movement was birthed and is still vibrant today because of families such as this, living in isolation, having very little resources in the form of money, time, or actual geographic pathway, not having large transportation, not having someone that can leave one activity to go take somebody away to be seen. So the federally qualified health center movement was born and included all of the elements to take those barriers away. So it was about providing care for those in need and removing any barrier that would keep them from accessing it. Money, hours of the day, and then making sure that if they got themselves there, all the resources that they needed could be found in that one location. In the instance of this family, that would have been medical care for Jake with that cough. That would have been a place for Jinx to process what it meant to be abandoned, to have the life that she had fantasized about appropriated and taken over and lived by the person she loved the most. So, those behavioral health services, having dental care, having resources to help with education and childcare. So, the Federally Qualified Health Center movement came about to serve families just like this, and it's still here today to serve families and folks who may be watching this evening.
That's great. Thank you so much. And so George also mentioned the adaptation. This was a traditional play with all kinds of physical demands. So, Evan, what was it like to grab a traditional stage play and adapt it to the modality that we saw tonight? What were the
Hmm.
challenges? Did the change? Did the play change because of it?
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, theater by its very nature is a collaborative art form, right? So people are in a room together, they're solving problems, they're telling stories. So when you take away that room and that interpersonal collaboration, you take away sort of the very essence of what makes theater and its creation so exciting. So the biggest challenge was probably maintaining that humanity, that kinesthetic energy, and that exciting exchange of ideas that you get from the in-person encounters that we now translate to a virtual setting when everyone is coming literally from different locations. Every single person participating is coming from a different home or place of work. And it's a testament to our cast and creative team that their resilience and their positivity and their generosity of spirit, that they all maintained that focused, connected human energy in rehearsal and on screen. As for changes that were made, theater and film, or in this case, digital video, are very different mediums, right? They tell stories in different ways, and they play to different storytelling strengths, and the audience experiences those stories differently. So moments that may play with a dialogue exchange or a lighting shift in a play now plays with a montage of images or a jump cut on screen. So what we tried to do, George and I and James and the other collaborators in bringing this to life, was find the best way to shift the storytelling strengths that George gave us in play form and translate those to storytelling strengths in video form. So we edited and replaced some dialogue with pictures and other video and visual elements. We added music in places to assist with the emotional journey of the characters. And there's one particular bit of stage action that George describes beautifully in the play with absence, which is a theme that runs throughout the play, with empty chairs that are then removed as people pass on in the story. And we did that via those old photographs that we then removed people from. So it was just a matter of finding a way to tell George's story differently, but hopefully every bit as effectively and as engagingly as you would experience on the stage.
And I cannot imagine how that was done at all via distance because you were not at all together, right? Everyone was completely separate.
That's right. Every single person was in their own home or other place of, as I said, place of business or other place where they were filming, and every person filmed themselves via their own smartphone and then we dropped all of that footage into a Dropbox. We recorded all of the audio via Zoom so that we could all be there together, and I could direct, and James could be there for technical assistance. But every piece of footage was captured by every person was their own technical director. Let's just say that, and everyone, if they weren't a technical director before, had on-the-job training to become one throughout the process. So.
One question that just came through, and I'm gonna punt it to Dr. Bruton. It talks about families and secrets. Is this a universal theme, or is this something that's specific to this storyline? What can you tell us about families and secrets?
Absolutely. There were several central or universal themes throughout this play. Um, Secrets are a part of the human fabric, and therefore they enter into relationships because people have things that they are willing to share and things that they're not willing to share. Some things that they feel they cannot share, and some things they just want to hold to themselves. In this particular play, there was the secret of the contents of the contents of the box that were so troubling to one of the main characters that she took her own life um, as a result of it. It was a secret that was too painful for her to talk about or to even live with. And so it is. Secrets are a universal theme. It's not a universally destructive force, though. There are things that are kept best tucked away. And there are some things that if you try to hold them in, they will eat at you and break you down and isolate you and put put you in potentially a very dark and destructive place, as we saw with Jinx, which is why it's so important to find some place, some way to get it out. One of the things that you just talked about, and that was also referenced a little bit in the story, was this notion of having an empty chair. And in the storyline, I think it was Jelly who talked about Jinx, when Daddy first went away, would still read to him in that empty chair. For those who are not willing or able to tell your secret anywhere else, especially if that secret involves somebody else upset, some deep emotion that you have toward them, a technique that is very helpful is to talk to that empty chair, to have a chair, to picture the person who you need to speak to in that chair and say the things that you want to say and maybe aren't able to say it to them live and in person, and then imagine them saying back to you the things that you need to hear. And what we saw in the play is that worked for Jinx for when she lived in an unknown, when she wasn't quite sure what happened to Daddy, had kind of believed that he was maybe never going to come back. That was a way that she coped. She still had him, imagining him there sitting in that empty chair. It was when reality came back to her in the contents of that letter that the chair, of course, didn't work anymore. She couldn't pretend she had the answers in her hand, and the answers were just too painful for her to bear.
And you mentioned themes. There were other themes. What, in your perspective, what were some of the other themes that came about in the play?
Well, as a clinician, what we learn in our training and then see over and over in our work is that when you see breakdowns in people's lives, they usually fall in a few buckets. One of the two big buckets are abandonment and rejection. When somebody has intense episodes or situations of abandonment or rejection, then they are at risk for having degrees of a breakdown that can go all the way to the level of disorders. Fear is another one of those. We saw phobias emerge in the play in the form of Daddy. So that was also another theme. The notion of being traumatized and being so scared that you become irrationally afraid of that situation. In this instance, it was the dark. It was being left alone. But for him, it was really the dark. And so he sought things that were light and could not bring himself to go back into dark places. Um, all of those are themes: loss, Rejection, having somebody else appropriate your idea and live your fantasy, reject you by leaving you out of it. Loss. Jinx was Daddy's little girl. Daddy was the person that understood her. She understood him. In today's language, we call it he was her person. And when your person just up and goes without explanation and never returns, that has an impact. All of these were psychological lashes and wounds that Jinx experienced and that many of us experience at different points of our lives.
Thank you. And George, having heard some of these ideas and having watched the film, I think for the second time, right, tonight, are there any surprises for you? Are there any things that surprise you, not just from the performance and the adaptation, but from your own identification with the material that you wrote?
That's a really good question. I think something that struck me tonight was I was trying to think of how did it come about that I picked that particular poem for Jinx. That kind of hit me tonight, and really a lot of that was from it, I remember hiking with my dad. My dad would take all of us kids out in the mountains, and we'd be hiking, and he'd be singing a song, some inappropriate drinking song or a war song or a hymn or whatever it might be, or he'd spout off some bits of Shakespeare. And we kids would just kind of look at each other, but he would just. And I remember there was a poem. This kind of stuck in my head. I remember this him in his he did it kind of in he did my father had a very light southern accent, but I remember when he did this one time he said, Chloe found Amantis lying all in tears upon the plain, and we're walking along kind of looking at each other, and that always sort of stuck with me. And then years later, 50 years later, I go back and I'm looking up John Dryden, and it just it struck me that maybe this was just the right piece for Jinx in that moment. But anyway, that struck me tonight. And also, I just want to say, to see these performers doing this brave. I think any actors are just they're some of the bravest people I know out there. And but when you see people taking your words and bringing them to life, it's a thrill. So I just want to thank the entire cast and all the production team, Alex for the music, and Jess for the images, and James certainly for his magic. So
Team knows for sure. But Evan, talking about discoveries, can you tell me and all of us a little bit about what was it like? Is there a silver lining to doing theater in this way, where there's some things that you absolutely did not think you were going to find that you found? What lays ahead?
I mean, I think that the biggest silver lining to be learned from this is that you can create theater really in any way that you can conceive of it. I mean, the arts community, there were so many communities that were adversely impacted by this pandemic that have been living through and still are on the way out of, but still living through. And the arts community is one of the ones that was hardest hit, certainly at least from an industry and work perspective. And so we all had to reimagine the way in which we present theater and art to people, specifically the performing arts. And so to do it this way allowed me to learn that the only limiting factors in place are your own imagination in terms of what you can bring to life. Because I think so often we've lived with the idea that like theater is in a black box or a large proscenium space, and you deliver performances in a presentational style, and there are various ways in which it can happen, but that's the way you experience live theater. So I would never have thought in a million years that I'd be making theater in this way, and certainly not for public consumption. But it proved to me that there are many more possibilities for this than I had realized, and that even someone who's been doing this for 20 years can and should still be surprised by the possibilities of what exists for this art form. And I hope to never stop being surprised by that. And this past year was a good reminder for that.
And the next thought is a question for each and every one of you about the arts and their role in society as essential or healing. What are your thoughts? What are your hopes? And how do we get there? So I'll start with you, Dr. B.
Sure. The arts are a wonderful bottle opener. Um, there are many things that may have been opened for people as they watched this performance. Um, some of those universal themes, there may be even other things that I may not point out, and that George may not have even written in, but something in the performance opens up the bottle, and something in them gets activated or revealed. So the ability to get in touch with oneself, to see oneself, to live vicariously, um, any of the creative forms give that access. We saw it in the play with what words did, period, what song did, for the characters. And so I was at a live theater performance last night, and to see the joy, that performance, and being transported and seeing somebody's creativity, what that can do for our overall well-being and morale. Theater is powerful. Words are powerful. Creativity, expression. Seeing each person in this process, and Evan being the visionary of how it all came together. All of that makes contributions that are healing and healthy and opening for all of us.
Thank you. So, George.
Just that's beautiful, Sonia. I was thinking that all during the pandemic, when we were talking about essential workers, and we know the frontline workers and all the people that we think of that took care of us. I also want people to realize and see how arts workers are essential. We think it's I can't really put it in words because it's very emotional to me. But the gifts of that creative people bring to all of us to think in new ways, to be able to express our emotions, to entertain us, to teach us. I think the best educators out there, and I'm an educator myself, are are folks who can connect with that creative side to ourselves. So and also just the world, like Shakespeare said, we're all players on this stage. So I think of the essential nature of the arts. Evan, what do you think?
Well, of course, I have to go last. What else is there left to pick up after those two great answers? But I'll do my best. I keep going back to the quote on the wall that you see in "It's a Wonderful Life," which is one of my favorite movies of all time. George Bailey's father. It says underneath his photo, "The only thing you can take with you is that which you've given away," right? And that's the entire idea of the arts, right? Is like we give memories, we give experiences, we give emotional catharsis, we give moments to people, particularly with live theater or live performance, right? Because you experience something, and then what you retain from it is your memory of that thing, and that, which is also, I think, very a great analogy for this particular play, because it has a lot to do with memory. What these people are sitting around remembering moments that they shared together. And so I think what's so beautiful about the arts is that it gives so much of itself to others, and those who receive it then hold on to something that is in many ways intangible and you can't quantify, and yet it means so much more than something that is tangible.
Yeah, and I believe that, like you say, there is a moment of aha that happens when something just triggers that opening that Dr. Brun referred to, and it's different for everyone, and it can only happen in that moment for that specific person in that specific play. So there's so much to be explored about that. I want to thank each and every one of you for spending these last few minutes talking about Holler and the experience. I also want to thank all the folks that donated. We were able to raise $2,650. So that's an amazing contribution to the work that CCI Health and Wellness Services produce. Oh, there is a question that just popped in. so intrigued by the idea in your work, George, of the father's demons being transferred to the daughter. Is this generational trauma something that your art is helping us recognize?
How to answer it? I'm gonna let Sonia and Evan help me out here. If they're gonna be my lifelines, it's
Is this generational trauma that we are experiencing?
generational. Well, I do believe that there are people in this country who have experienced generational trauma. It's been passed down. It's kind of I don't know if it's genetic or if it's the continued stories of these despair. In fact, I was reading an article just the other day about in the mining communities, in fact, and they actually have a name for it. They call it the disease of despair. And they said 70% of people that live in mining communities have this disease of despair, and unlike any other part of the country. So that's physical issues, but it's mental, and I think there's probably a lot of handed down trauma.
Dr. Bruton, any follow up on that?
What I'll add to that is that in this case, what we saw is, a father who knew he had problems, who knew then and made us all aware that he even knew more later how much he pulled from his youngest daughter, how she got him through. Until he couldn't take it anymore. And then he ran for what he needed. But he didn't reach back to be sure that she got what she needed. Or, and the box was his way. It was an empty way, it was an incomplete way. And so, places like CCI Health and Wellness were there to help people deal with their trauma and stop it there, to end the cycle. There were cycles of despair. There were examples of poor parenting, but then he repeated it. And so, it does open up and it helps us to see very clearly and outside of ourselves, and then apply to ourselves, what are the ways in which we are not addressing areas that we know are causing us distress and disruption and being passed along and creating additional disruption for our children or other loved ones in our lives or our households. And so it is a great example. It's on display. Uh, what we had during this pandemic and what you see during the play is we're not all having the same experience. Even those siblings, they didn't have the same experience with their father. They didn't have the same response to similar instances or situations that they lived through. It affects different people differently. And so we also need to be aware as parents and as loved ones to look out for signs within ourselves, but also for distress from others. We heard, I think it was Jelly say, Jinx had gotten to the point where she was slumped over and still talking to that chair. That was a family that would look at distress right in front of them and not address it. Medical distress, mental distress. And so it's just important to interrupt those cycles. Somebody sees, somebody knows. Secrets don't help, but also turning a blind eye, pretending, denying doesn't help as well.
Thank you. And there's another question. Can you tell us how CCI fills these roles of care within communities?
Absolutely. Part of it is to provide the professionals needed. We saw in this household there was some therapy or mental support that was needed. There were issues around regular and routine checkups. That cough was more than just a bug that got in their throat in the wind, as I think um, Shelley tried to say. And it was more than just a little cold that he tried to attribute to it for himself. What we provide is the ability, regardless of income, regardless of language, regardless of transportation availability, allows someone to get in and be seen by a professional and get help throughout Montgomery and Prince George's counties.
Thank you so much. And folks, thank you again for tuning in. We have reached our 30-minute mark, and we are so excited that you spent this evening with Holler and the cast and crew. Thanks you so much. CCI Health and Wellness Services, thanks you for your donation. Big thanks to Evan, of course, for being the director of our show, and Alex Diaz for composing the music, the whole cast, and James Gardner for making all the technical stuff work seamlessly. And of course, none of this would have happened without Michael Stromberg, who kind of held it all together along the way. Before we go, Evan, what's happening next with you professionally? Tell the kids at home where can they find you?
Well, I wish I could. I wish I had a laundry list of things to tell you to come and see me in. But currently, I think as theaters are starting to figure out their way to opening and things of that nature, we're all sort of figuring out how to restart. So currently, I don't have anything specific on the docket. One of the silver linings personally for me in the past year and a half with this pandemic has been the opportunity to actually be at home with my son and watch him grow from 6 to 7, which, when you're working pretty much every night and you're not there for bedtimes and things of that nature, you forget sort of what you're missing until you can be there all the time. So I'm eager, yes, to be back on stage and doing other things, but I'm also okay if it takes some time, because I'm trying to appreciate these moments as well. So right now, just being a dad, and that's a very good thing to be. And who knows? George has more plays. We have more things to do, George, I'm sure. So who knows?
Docket, George.
My docket?
Yeah.
Well, I've got I'm actually working with some wonderful collaborators on a musical called Vaudou that had its first iteration 20 years ago, and we're completely reimagining the show. I was down in New Orleans with these folks, and it's a thrill to see what's happening that I had never expected. That's really wonderful theatrical project. And then my work continues with some amazing people out there in the education and human service world. So I'm feeling very grateful. Thank you, everybody.
Dr. Bruton, what is the next event that people can support at CCI Health and Wellness Services?
Please come out. We run as a community event. It'll be a chance for us to fellowship, move a little bit, and contribute to a great cause.
Wonderful. And that is in August?
August 14th.
So be in the lookout for August 14th for Run Baby Run.
All right, let's get a group together for our cast to go.
All right, for running. Well, thank you again for spending this last 30 minutes with us. I really appreciate that. And thank you for your support. And continue to support the arts. As you heard it tonight, they are essential and they are healing. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.